Okay. Hello, everyone. For those of you who've been with us since the first session today, you know the drill. But for those who are joining us now, let me quickly take you through the program and introduce you to our core team. I am Damini Raleigh, a Delhi-based food journalist. I joined Holytisch earlier this year. My colleague Joella, who you'll also see a lot of through the convention, works in the field of agrosystem regeneration with a company called Seawater Solutions. And the backbone of this project is Charlotte, who co initiated Holy Tisch. We all come from the same university, which is the Slow Food University of Gastronomic Sciences in Italy. When we were thinking about the theme for this year's convention, food sovereignty is something that, kept coming up. And so we sort of decided to pull together some very special people from across the globe who are doing incredible work in the area of food sovereignty. They will, over the course of this convention, talk about ways to achieve that much desired goal through sustainable rural development, localized value chains, and put before you some very interesting business models. The idea is to look at food systems in which people who grow and distribute food have been able to regain control of the mechanisms of food production and distribution. We have speakers from organizations like the Baltic Sea Action Group and the Ghana Food Movement who are trying to affect changes at the policy level, and some interesting alternative businesses like Tai Kai Coffee and Fair Afrique that ensure that their food production and trading practices honor sustainability and yield rich profits for the farmers. For this session, we will be discussing seed sovereignty. Seeds, which are the first link in the food chain, hold the power, as most of you know, to regenerate species, promote biodiversity, and enable ecosystems to adapt to an ever-changing world. These are the primary reasons why it's necessary to preserve seeds, and this is the need that we will be discussing with a very special duo today. That's Daniel and Julia, who join us from the Seedsavers network in Kenya. The two work to address food and nutritional insecurity in the country and preserve agrobiodiversity by strengthening community managed seed systems to ensure better seed access. Thank you very much for joining us today. Before we start off, I just want to quickly remind everyone watching that you could do a deep dive session with us on a Zoom link, which is what we're using right now. Daniel, my first question is to you. You are the founder, director of Seedsavers Network, and you grew up in rural Kenya, where your family practiced subsistence agriculture. That experience, I'm sure, to a great degree informs what you do today. So do you want to tell me a little bit about how you went about establishing Seedsavers Network in India? What were your growing up years like, and how they inform the work that you do today?
Thank you, Damini. Yeah, thank you again for having us here. Yeah, as you have put it, I grew up in the rural Kenya. That is basically almost everyone in Kenya. A lot of people in Kenya live in the rural areas, like 70% of the population live in the rural areas. And those days, I think it was even up to 90% of everyone was in the rural area. And everyone, when you come from school every day, you had a portion for you to cultivate or to do some gardening work. Otherwise, your parents say you no food. So you must go to school, and when you come back, you do some work in the garden so that you are growing food and you're also going to school every day. Now, in my village or the place where we grew up, there was less rainfall as compared to many places, to other places in Kenya. You know, Kenya is only 20% arable. The rest of the Kenya place is semi-arid and also arid. So a lot of time in our region or in our village, rains used not to come. And we could plant some crops sometimes, then we don't have any harvest. And when you don't have the harvest, we used to go up the mountain. Almost it's like the migration of the whole village, going up the mountain and doing some manual work, giving some labor, so that in return you could get food. And after that, after growing up in that village, doing that work, so this year we have food. The next year people are hungry, and shifting like that. I later joined the Ministry of Agriculture, and what I also observed there is that there is no approach that is specific to region, and there is no approach that is differentiate between large-scale farmers and small-scale farmers. So everyone is told by government to do farming as a business. And what is farming as a business according to what we were doing in the ministry is you use fertilizer, use chemicals, use seeds that you buy. And all those approaches perhaps could suit some people in some regions, but not everyone. So after doing that for a couple of years, I realized this is the wrong thing to continue doing. And I resigned from the ministry to start Seedsavers Network. And Seedsavers Network now use agroecological approaches, use seed saving, and use local solution, because our people who advise on what should be trained are the elders who have the wisdom after doing a lot of practice over many years. They know, they understand that area should grow this kind of crops, and this is what we advise, and this is the knowledge that we use. And we believe in that knowledge, and it has worked well so far for over 10 years since we started Seedsavers Network.
That's great. That's great. We will talk in greater detail about all the wonderful programs you have going at the network. But before that, I want to bring Julia into the conversation. Julia too belongs to a family of farmers, and I believe tries through her work to make Seed Savers Networks projects as gender inclusive as possible. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about the work that you do?
All right, maybe I can start with my own personal story. So I briefly grew up in the rural area before we moved to a bit of an urban area. So in the rural area, my grandparents and my dad, they were doing more of pyrethrum growing in this area. So this was more like monoculture in that region. And so you would find people would have to buy food because we were not growing food, we were just growing pyrethrum. And somehow, being a young child, I remember observing this, and of course I didn't have the answers, but I thought somehow when you have land, you should be able to get as sufficient and diverse food as you can. But now they had, in their own thinking, the pyrethrum was maybe something more like a livelihood to give them more money, but we were spending all this money to buy food. So of course, this was not sustainable enough, and my parents had to move to town and do a bit of business to survive. So looking back, I also went to school to study agriculture. So this is what I studied in school. And still in school, there was a bit of monoculture being encouraged a lot. And this is something I didn't want. I wanted a situation where we have fruits in the farm, we have different varieties of food we can eat. And so when I met Daniel at the Ministry of Agriculture, and this is the time he was coming up with the seed saving idea and bringing it on board. And so this also shifted my mind, and I was able to join his team. And I also worked as an intern at Seedsavers when it was still a baby. And this is how I knew about Seedsavers. And this is how I joined the team. And from now, the rural area that we come from, this is the gospel we are preaching, that you don't have to buy food. You can grow your own food in the farm. And you can actually do this at zero budget with what you have locally, through, of course, saving your seeds. Foliar, you can make it yourself in the farm, all these things. And so this makes life more meaningful, and you grow nutritious, you are able to give your family nutritious food. So the work I do at Seedsavers, I'm a program officer with a major interest in gender and markets, so agroecology market. So all the programs that we do at Seedsavers, we have a gender strategy that ensures we have a gender mainstreaming in all the projects. And by gender, I mean we use the best practices on gender transformative approaches, which means we let the women be the lead. Mostly women are the custodians of our food systems. Yes, and if we don't give them a voice to speak, the men will always want to come. It's not a competition between men and women, no, but the women have the knowledge, the indigenous knowledge. The women are the ones mostly doing the hard work in the farms. So we are trying to also capacity build them in leadership, to also take up the roles in groups and be able to transform our food system, because this woman wants to feed her children healthy food. And so agroecology is the best method that is able to bring this. Yes.
That's true. That's fabulous. You know, what I find really interesting is that you talk of communities that produce the bulk of the food that they consume. And I came across this statistic on the internet, which said that in Kenya, 80% of seeds used by small scale farmers are sourced from informal or farmer managed seed systems. And they save them and reuse them and exchange them amongst their family and friends and, the people that they know. But tell me, with increased commercialization and these exclusive intellectual property rights, I'm sure small scale farmers that you work with find it increasingly difficult to access and multiply seeds. Could you elaborate on the issue and also tell us how the Seed Savers network is helping the farmers fight these challenges?
Should I start?
Please.
Thank you. Yeah, you are very much right. The seeds that are being used by the farming communities in Kenya are perhaps even more than 80% sourced from informal seed system, because the kind of seeds that are in the formal seed system that are certified seeds in Kenya, mostly these are imported seeds, like just exotic vegetables that are like 95% of the seeds in the shops are just imported. And for farming communities, especially small scale farmers, they prefer to have diversity, and they don't go for those seeds that are in the shops. So they get seeds from the neighbors, get seeds from the market, get seeds from open air market where it is not really part of the certification system. And they also get seeds from their own seed saving and also seed bank. And these seeds, farmers prefer them because they are much more adapted as compared to the seeds that are coming from outside, because we also know adaptation happens, and if you have any genetic material existing where it's not supposed to be, there is always a challenge with the environment, and the struggle to keep it alive is always a problem. But the challenge is that we are facing in Kenya today is that even our own seed policy recognize that we get seeds from farmers managed seed system. Therefore, we are not getting seeds from the seeds that are certified and the seeds that are in the shops. But the laws do not recognize this system, because the law that govern the seed system in Kenya, called Seed and Plant Varieties Act, especially the Amendment Act 24, it is cut and paste from UPOV 91. It is only based on the assumption that the people who are solving the seed access problem are seed companies, and therefore they should be protected with intellectual property rights. And in Kenya, for instance, there is no seed that can be sold legally or accessed legally if it is not registered, and it is not, and a lot of time registration and protection with intellectual property right, or what they call here in Kenya plant breeders' rights, is the same process. At the end of the registration process, there is acquisition of plant breeders' rights. And once people acquire plant breeders' rights, then they are able to trade that, and they are able to get protected, so that they are the only one who have the right of exploitation. So we have a list in Kenya of it is called the variety national varieties list. That is a list of, like, I think a few hundred plants or varieties that are supposed to be our seeds. But Kenya, we have thousands, if not millions, of varieties. And therefore, this is the problem that create a situation where if I register anything and I am a seed company and I am protected to do business with it, then I enjoy what should be a monopoly. It is essentially a monopoly. So if I have a monopoly to supply that particular variety, and I do marketing, normally this is what has happened. They do a lot of marketing on the radio, farmers radio actually. They do a lot of marketing on TV, and people start believing this is the only solution to yields, high yields, and also maybe to income. And people start believing that. And when people start buying that, then it is overpriced, so that the prices are not accessible to small-scale farmers anymore. And there is also a challenge of even distribution. This season you are looking for it, it is not there. Or you are looking for it in this village, it's not there. And you are not able to access it because of the distance, or because of the price, or even because of the information. And if you happen to buy it, most of the time, if you happen to buy that particular variety, the company that is selling it, they are also selling chemicals. So they give you a package of spraying that you are supposed to do. So it's kind of, they capture you. And if they decide this season, they are not providing it, you cannot eat, then because you cannot plant. And then because of the law, you have no right to save the seeds from the previous harvest that you had. So you either go hungry, or you are doomed if this company does not solve your problem. And that's why as Seed Savers Network, we use indigenous knowledge. We don't want to use, because indigenous knowledge is open source. It's not patented, and elders are willingly sharing it. We use it to show people how to save the seeds, how to maintain soil fertility, and how to be dependent, so that it doesn't matter whether your supplier is willing to give you seeds or not, but you are still able to eat. And it doesn't matter whether you have money or not, but you can still be able to plant your food, and you can still be able to maintain it using manure or using any other measure that you could take against specific diseases, as long as you are independent and insulated from interferences by people who are only interested in profit, because food is too important to leave it to people whose only motivation is profit. If I could stop there.
Damini, you're muted.
Thank you for pointing that out. I also wanted to ask you a little bit about the farmer training center that you run at Seed Savers Network. You have farmers and workers within the agroecology space, and you offer them sort of these tailor-made training programs. And you also have something called a demonstration garden, I believe, which exemplifies how these agroecological principles, and Daniel just spoke about that a little bit. But can you tell me a little more about the program? What are the day-to-day activities? I also find it very interesting that you have farmers training other farmers. So how did you go about building this network? And, what is this sort of tailor-made training program that you have going on?
All right, I will respond to this. So at our center, we use a model we call seed ambassador model. So seed ambassador is a lead farmer, and we are not a big team. We are a team of 11 staff, but we also have a vast number of seed ambassadors in different regions in the country. So a seed ambassador or a lead farmer, we usually bring them to the center, the training center. So let me give an example of, like, we train them, for example, on seed extraction. When we talk of tomatoes, for example, in the market, the small sachet, like 10 grams, is sold at 2,500 Kenya shillings. This is like $25 US dollars. And for a rural farmer, this is really expensive for them to afford as just seeds. So one of our trainings that we do, we train them on how to extract seeds. And of course, we also show them the best tomato varieties that can do well without really relying on, they're not really attacked by pests. So this is like the cherry tomato. So you find most of the rural farmers have been brainwashed to think this kind of tomato is for the birds. So this is the kind of perception we change, and they can use these tomatoes for their food. They don't have to look for the big one in the market and this kind of. So one of the trainings we do is on seed extraction. So we hold trainings on this. We teach them how to extract seeds from tomatoes, from even, because also we encourage agroforestry in the farms. As a principle of agroecology, there's that biodiversity. So we also train them on how to do germination tests and all this at the center. So we use the farm leads, who also now go back to their villages and train. So they have a target. They have to be able to train every month. They have a target. They have to reach different groups within their village, and also be able to give this kind of expertise that they have to other 10. If we trained 10, they also each individually has to be able to really train 10 groups and the leaders of these 10 groups. So this is the kind of model we have, and it has been having a ripple effect, and we are able to reach so many farmer groups. Other trainings that we do also is we have sensitization sessions. When I talk about gender, we also talk of women in trade and some of the challenges they face and what to look for in relation to trade. Because also when we talk of market, as we talk of growing our food, we cannot leave the market part out. So when we talk about the market, we find mostly what women are saying is they're not able to get good prices. Mostly you find we have brokers that are coming to the villages and just buying the food at very cheap prices. So also we train them on marketing strategies and marketing analysis and what they can do in order to reach the market and to position themselves uniquely, and maybe for the diversity that they grow, to be able to analyze the market and know what kind of thing to grow. So these are some of the trainings. It's really holistic through the whole agroecology value chain. And this is their kind of information they also disseminate to the villages.
Great. For the benefit of our viewers and for people who are not from Kenya, of course, women are the custodians of seeds, not just in your country, but in several parts of the world. And
Yes.
their work, even when they're not working in the agrarian sector, their work is rarely recognized and not compensated for financially.
Yes.
If you were to draw an arc about, what the sort of what the status of the women farmers that you work with was before you brought them on board,
Yeah.
and what are the changes that you've seen? Of course, you've spoken about the market strategy and helping them
Mhm.
position themselves better in a marketplace, but what are some of the other ways in which help empower them?
Maybe
Yeah.
before my colleague comes in, I want to mention, because I'm really happy with the seed ambassadors and the progress they are making. So of course, with the trying to encourage the women, we have a few farm leads, around 5 women, and they have been training other communities on how to have a kitchen garden. So one of the changes has been, we have empowered this woman economically with a skill that they're using at their home. And apart from their home, they are also able to reach the community and give this service at a small fee. We are also getting calls from people, how can I make this kitchen garden? And we connect with this woman and they go and they train this skill. So also, this is one of the ways they have been able to have a skill, and this skill is convertible to something, some money that they can put in their pocket. Wanjama, over to you.
Yes. Yeah, for me, I wanted to give a story, the story of Beatrice. Uh, uh, Julia and myself, we know her. And Beatrice joined our program like 7 years ago. And when she joined the program, she always had challenges of seeds. And like during the planting season, she used to disturb her husband to buy her seeds because her husband is a laborer, in the construction, and the husband sometimes may not have money. So she told us once that every time during the planting season, they used to have some sort of fight with her husband, so much that everyone used to sleep facing the other way because they have had so much fight because the husband is not able to provide seeds. But today, after working with us several years, now Beatrice is a seed ambassador. She has learned how to multiply her seeds. How to save her seeds. And besides that, she established her own seed bank. Now people call her to provide seeds, and she's able to send seeds to people. She's able to train other people, and she got peace in her own home. Now she has respect because she doesn't have to disturb anybody, like buy me seeds. And this is the kind of impact we are having, like women, because their main focus is to feed their family, feed their children. They are very interested in having as much diverse seeds as possible, and they are the one who are cultivating some gardens to get food, not to get money. And these need diverse and different kind of materials to plant. And sometimes men understand only the language of like, how much shall we sell if we grow? But women want to plant and grow to feed children and feed their family. And they have totally different perspective from men when they are engaging in farming. So they conserve diversity, and they're able to feed children. And when children have eaten, and everyone has eaten in the family, sometimes not all the time the man has eaten, but at least the children have eaten. They are happy. They are satisfied. And we have seen so many women smile when they're able to have diverse seeds. and they're able to save seeds on their own.
That's lovely. That's lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that story with us. I also want to talk to you a little bit about your programs, or just the importance of, a quality source of native seeds that you all are building, especially in, when you sort of look at it or contextualize it with climate crisis, or in the event of like crop disasters and things like that. But along with that, could you also outline some of the more, some of the reasons why you think it's important to seed save? Of course, everything you've said up till now goes on to sort of illustrate why. But for people who may be new to the issue, what are, why would you say maybe 4 or 5 things? Talk about the importance of seed saving.
Right,
yeah,
I can.
Okay. You want to start, Julia?
Yes, I can mention
right.
a few and then you continue. So as an organization, we have been able to record over 43 lost species, varieties of food, and we have no trace of where they are. So one of the reasons of seed saving also is to conserve culture, I would say culture and food diversity. Like when we talk of saving seeds, we are also talking of indigenous and traditional foods. We might be getting urbanized and becoming more urban and maybe leaving the rural areas. So we might be forgetting some of the cultures. And in this way, we are losing food in this process. And this food, you realize, had a lot of nutritional benefit to us, but we are forgetting easily, and we are somehow, like let me talk about the maize. Right now in Kenya, it's very rare for you to find any other type of maize apart from the white maize. So this is really a disaster, because white maize, in terms of nutritional value, the nutritional level is very low, and you find the kind of flour that is coming, it has to be fortified, fortified with vitamin C and all. But when we had all these varieties of colored maize, the red, the purple, they had these vitamins with them. And that's one reason why we need to save our seeds, also for nutritional security of our country, as well as cultural preservation and food diversity. Yes. Over to you, Wanjama.
Yeah. So in addition to what Julia has mentioned, if you remember, Julia had also mentioned that the seed are very costly. The prices are very high. And people think, or maybe people who are not farmers, they think the most expensive thing on earth is gold, but it's not, it's seed. If you measure the equivalent weight of some hybrid tomatoes with that of gold, you realize that one seed like this, like for greenhouse tomatoes, one seed like this, it is sold over 100 shillings, which is fewer grams than what you could get for gold on that money. So seeds are very, very expensive, mostly because of the monopoly because created by intellectual property rights. They call it innovation, but it's just crossing this and that, which exists naturally. But then they claim so much price. And so because of the price only, a lot of farmers will not be able to afford seeds. We have seen in our country, in the rural area, where crop fails, farmers take a lot of time. They even lose 2 weeks of rains because they're waiting for a son in the city to send money so that they can buy seeds, or they are waiting. They have to go and do some other work, like they plant for someone else. They plant for someone who is richer, so that they can get money to buy seeds. So seeds are too expensive. And the other problem we have is that seed companies don't go for seeds because they're interested in feeding anyone. Their interest is to make profit. So what happens to some seeds that are not really very profitable, or they are not going to be sold in mass? They are not going to be sold in very many areas. So there is no supplier. For instance, when we talk about even the potatoes is also a very important food in Kenya. There is no supplier. When farmers are looking for seeds, they cannot find any to supply. When farmers are looking for seeds for sweet potatoes, they will not find a supplier. People are not supplying seedlings, and there's farmers want to grow fruits. Why? Because logistically, the global or the companies that are big, they are not interested in the seeds that they can do in a small area. They want seed that they can do in a big area, and therefore there is no lack of supply. The only supplier we have is the farmers themselves. That's why the seeds have to be they have to be saved by the farmers. And the other problem is farmers live in very remote areas, some areas that are not accessible. In some situations, when someone gets sick, they can only be transported using a donkey. And if you go to those places, you will not find any shop. And when the government says everyone should get seeds from the shop, there are no shops there. So for farmers to travel and go and buy seeds, they spend a lot of time, a lot of money, more money traveling than the money they spend in buying seeds, because they live in the remote areas, they like that environment, and they're happy there. But then they are told they should buy seeds. But seeds are naturally existing. They shouldn't be part of the item that they need to spend money on to buy. And therefore, over time, you realize that the only solution is to save seeds. Also, because some of the, like in 2 years ago, in Kenya, we had a disease called maize rethonocrosis disease. It's a very long term. I also don't know what it means very well. But this disease was spreading so fast, wiping out like what government think or what government says is a strategic food security crop, that is maize. And all of a sudden it has moved from east to the west, from now south to the north. There is no crop because the disease has spread so much. But why was it spreading very fast? It is also because it is transmitted through seeds, and the regulatory authority, which is also a bit controlled by multinationals that deal with seeds, could allow the seed companies to have a maximum of 10% preference in the consignment. So when they have 10% prevalence of maize necrosis disease, so if that consignment just spread it by just two seeds per farmer, then that one, because it's also viral, it is spread to the whole region. And that way we were able to spread the diseases so fast. But with seed saving, everybody would have their own seeds. So there is no risk of spreading a problem so fast because no one is doing really in a very big volume. So there are many, 1,000 reasons because farmers are not interested in money, they're interested in seeds and they need to survive. In any case, farmers, a lot of small-scale farmers, the first priority of growing food is to feed themselves, it's not to sell. So even if people say farming as a business, bring hybrid seeds, bring GMO, grow it in mass, have high yields, a lot of maize is produced. If farmers don't grow their own food, they still don't have money to buy that. Even if it's there, they will still die of hunger. So the only way is everyone growing what they are eating.
Yeah. And you know what they're eating and what we're eating brings us also to the question of biodiversity, right? And how seed sovereignty and seed saving leads to that. Like the current industrial food system, which relies heavily on monocultures and widespread use of agrochemicals or You have commercial patented seeds or genetically modified seeds. All of these are major contributors to the disappearance of plant genetic diversity. And we're now living off of some 12 plant species, I believe. Through the programs that you've put into place, what is the kind of, have you been able to see a change in, or, in the nutritional basket of the farmers? Do you think they're consuming more, they're growing more? I mean, I'm sure they are, because they're not indulging in monocropping anymore.
Yes, we have been able to see this change. And there's a place in Vihiga that Wanjama is probably on their way, called Vihiga. In Vihiga, we are doing a project on local traditional vegetables. So this is where we are reintroducing, and they're already existing, but with a few farmers. So this is like a campaign we are doing where we want farmers to be able to grow this in their farms, local vegetables. So this is a project we are doing in Vihiga. Vihiga is very fertile, but somehow with the introduction of these seeds and the hype on, buying seeds from the shop, we somehow just keep losing some of these local vegetables. So we have been trying to help farmers save these seeds and be able to replant in their farms. So that is one project we are doing. Where we are in Nakuru, Gilgil, we have been able to see this change. And when we talk about market for agroecological and diverse food, so we are trying to set up an organic market where all these diverse foods can be sold, because our farmers are telling us, we have this and this food. So we have been connecting them to markets, though they have not been really consistent, but this is, as an organization, this is something we are working on, to be able to provide a consistent market for these diverse foods that our farmers are producing. Yes, so we have been able to see tremendous change in the farms. Yes.
Yeah. So in addition to what Julia said, when FAO made a report and said that we have lost 75% of the species that we used to eat, of all the food that we used to eat, we said, wait a minute, what about in our own villages? So we decided to conduct a survey in our own villages. And using farmers' memory, we said, over 20 years, what can you remember that you used to see that it's not there, especially using elders? And we were surprised. In 20 years, 10 villages, we had lost 35 local varieties. That's what we found, that 5 local varieties are gone. And this means is a trend. Only 10 villages. You can imagine in the whole country what is being lost, and what the seeds that are being kept in the National Gene Bank, like what Julia is mentioning here. We were able to see what have you lost, and then apply it to the National Gene Bank and being able to return it back. But again, the farmers we return back to, sometimes they don't have very clear memory on what it was. And sometimes this system, National Gene Bank system, or this conservation, is not very clear on what is conserved there, whether it is really what farmers lost or it is. So we have a challenge. It is just collected from somewhere else. But the main problem that we are also facing in Kenya today is to do with food safety. And that's why people now find our program very useful, because if you use certain chemicals and you try export your food to Europe, that food will not come to Germany, because when the food get to the airport, there is test that is done to counter-check how much chemical residue is in the food. And this is also our own regulatory authority. They check. If they see you have limits beyond what is allowed by European market, you have to return it to the local market, and then we eat it. I think including the person who is taking at the airport, because he's also a Kenyan, is likely to go and buy it after saying it is bad, it is not suitable for human use. They're able to come and buy it from the market and eat it themselves. And this is a serious problem because there is no enforcement, or there are no regulations to ensure that we are not eating chemicals. We are not eating food that is not suitable to be eaten by human beings. But we only have that for food that we want to export. So because of that, a lot of people now are afraid of eating vegetables and also some fruits that they find just all over. So people, even in the urban areas, they are focusing on growing their own. So we have kitchen gardens all over coming up, and we have model for kitchen gardening that is supposed to save people from eating chemicals, because we are seeing more and more people dying, almost overtaking infectious diseases, cancer coming up, because people are literally eating chemicals, because companies that are selling seeds, they say you must use these chemicals, but they don't say that they are very harmful. We have seen even some people getting hospitalized because of coming into contact with those chemicals. So because of that, there is concerns now, even at family level, that you need to know where your food is coming from. And for you to know that exactly what is happening, you would rather grow it yourself.
I was also wondering, you've spoken about the lack of biodiversity and also the challenges that you faced when you were trying to document the lost foods. What are some of the other challenges that you have before you, when you're working with farmers, when you're trying to save seeds, when you're trying to educate them, or, with the women that you work with?
All right, maybe I can mention a few challenges that we have. We have some of our farmers in the semi-arid areas. And so some of the challenges has been water, the availability of water for the farmers. So we have farmers in the Nakuru region and Baringo. So these are really dry places. They can get really dry. We've also had challenge, of course, with the change of the rain seasons, where we are not able to properly advise a farmer, like, this is the time you plant. So that we've been having this kind of challenges in our work. Also with the market that I mentioned, this is an area also we are trying to work across and be able to solve this challenge with the market. Our farmers have really been complaining of very poor prices for their produce. And this is an area we need to be able to provide a solution to the farmers.
Yeah, in addition to that, part of the major challenge that we're also facing is that the companies that are doing agro-input businesses in Kenya, they don't do just that. They make the law. Therefore, whenever they find a challenge, they go ahead and propose some laws to the government that this one is going to be suitable. For instance, the agrochemical company proposed sometimes, I think 2 years ago, proposed a law that banned farmers from using manure, like compost. And people protested, and they were able to even, I think, stop that. But it almost materialized to tell farmers that manure is harmful. What is not is fertilizer. Like literally forcing small-scale farmers who don't even have money to buy fertilizer to start using fertilizer. And the other day, they managed to pass the law that every farmer who is growing potatoes must register and get a certificate. It doesn't matter whether you are growing on a 10 by 50 by 12 yards, but you have to register. And registration is a process, and you have to give your data so that people want to know where you're getting your fertilizer, where you're getting your seeds, and perhaps once they have this data, they might be able to intervene. You also have a big problem with biopiracy also, which is also provided for by our laws. Like our law says, if you discover anything, it become yours. And discovering means being the first one to register or being the first one to document. So what is happening is we have some people going to the farmer's garden and picking some varieties, go document it and register. And then from that moment, farmers are not allowed to continue saving the seeds for that particular variety. But we have tried to do some documentation so that we are able to say this one does not belong to the company. This is belong to the farmer. It has existed before. But the problem is it is quite expensive, and also the format that we use is perhaps not the format that these people would want us to use, because for us, our format of developing the memory or developing the records that these varieties belong to the farmers is simplified using farmers' way of looking at it. But for them, they want us to use a complicated system that exclude the farmers, but we also refuse. Then we have a situation where we can say this, we can identify it belong to the farmers, it belong to us, but they say identify using our way, and then we refuse. So we have a lot of challenges specifically to do with the regulations, with the laws that are really not suitable for our work.
I would love to keep chatting with you about all the incredible work that you do, but I think we're running out of time, and I do want to open this conversation up to our participating audience. But before we do that, I have a quick question. For the people who are here, or those who might find the video later on YouTube, what are the ways in which young people in Kenya, or from across the globe, what are the ways in which they can get involved with the Seed Savers network if they want to? Because I know that you're open to visitors and interns.
We are open to visitors, interns, volunteers, all across. We have a training center that has an accommodation center where we are able to accommodate some of these visitors when they come. And also in our work, we want to be able to get more young people understanding this, because we realize also there's a gap when we go to school. Usually when we go to school, the curriculum is a bit tailored to somehow promote agrochemicals in a way. There's really no education on seeds. Any course, I don't think any agricultural student is able to learn this kind of work. So we really want the youth to be part of this. So yeah, this is open. On our website, we have where if you want to be a volunteer, there is contact on the website, www.seedsaversnetworkkenya.org. Also in Kenya, we are working with youth groups, and we are welcoming students from different universities. And when they come, they have a different shift of mind, because all they know, the advice they give to their parents when they go home is, buy this kind of chemical. If you have this kind of, if you see something on your spinach, you should use this and this. So this is the kind of education they have in school. But when they come, they're able to learn that you can use what is locally available. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, thank you very much for this conversation. I had such a great time. We don't have enough time to get into a deep dive, but hopefully people will leave their questions under the YouTube video. Thanks very much for joining us today.
That was super great. Thank you so much. I enjoyed it very much.